The first thing I'd like to say is it's just wonderful to hear such inspirational stories from other women, and I think, one of the things that I'd say to you all is you never stop learning, and one of the best ways, as Sian just said, of learning is by listening to other people and drawing on their experience. And when you get to my age, you've had quite a lot of experience, so I thought that what I would do today is share with you my top tips, things that I've sort of seen over the years, things that have worked for me. I spent roughly half my career at the BBC, although in two chunks. There was 10 years in the middle where I was outside the BBC, and now I'm outside again. So I've had experience of working in big organisations, of working for small independent companies, of working for commercial companies, and now I'm running my own business. Well, it's not my business, it's owned by a big German company, but I run their British company. So the first rule I say is there are no rules. Everybody you speak to will have got there a different way. So whatever works for you is what works for you. So don't let anybody tell you that this is what you must do. You will find things from what we all say today that just resonate with you. So hang on to those things and use them. So my first thing that I'd say to you is have fun. I think that if you do what you like, you will do it well because you're having fun. I can honestly say it has never been a drag for me to go to work. I've enjoyed every day of my working life. I'm lucky enough to work in a fun industry, in TV, managing some of the big egos that Jessica manages from the other side. So people like Simon Cowell and Alan Sugar are my bread and butter. And you'll probably be delighted to know that I haven't modelled my management style on either of them. But, every day I go into the office, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what crisis will erupt. I don't know what fantastic programme idea a member of our team will come up with. So it's always fun. And I think that if you're enjoying yourself, that creates its own opportunities. It becomes a virtuous circle. People notice you because you are a positive influence around the place. So that's my first tip. My second tip is everyone is bluffing. Now, I bet lots of people sitting in here think, I am not as good as A, B or C, the person who works in the office next to me, my colleague, my friend, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? None of us actually think we're as good as the next person. And, I said this to a friend of mine who was applying for a job recently, and she said, that's such a good thing. I said to her, only you know what you don't know. So nobody else knows that. Nobody else knows it. And for God's sake, don't tell them. Go in, talk about the things you can do. Now, women are very bad at this. They sit there and go, oh, God, I'm terrible at finance. And then their boss starts going, do you know what? She's actually terrible at finance. If you hadn't put that idea into their minds, they never would have thought it. So it's very important to women to present your positive side because there will be a lot of positive things about you. Now, the other thing that I would say is that often, women blame the fact that they're a woman or other things for their failure. I think fear of failure is the biggest cause of people not succeeding, and you have to conquer that fear because we all have it. When I was a junior researcher on Newsnight, I used to come in the morning at 10 o'clock and we'd have a morning meeting and I would be assigned an item and I had to have it on the air at 10:30 that night. And that was a fantastic discipline because if I didn't do it, if I didn't deliver, there would be 10 minutes of blank screen. And, that is a scary prospect, but it meant every day I had to come in. And, then when I was producing panoramas, it was even worse because there would have been a 60-minute hole in 6 weeks' time if I didn't deliver. But that discipline of delivering and conquering it, because otherwise you will only stay at a certain level. The third thing I would say to you is take charge of your own destiny. This is your life, it's your career, or it's your business. It isn't up to anybody else to make things happen for you. It is up to you to make things happen for you. And I've seen it a lot, particularly in big organisations. People start to drift. They wait for the organisation to tell them what to do. I wonder what they'll have for me next. Or they will have noticed I should really be getting this next promotion. The truth is, nobody will notice those things. You've got to plot and plan yourself. And this is why I started by saying, are you happy? If you're not happy, move on. If you don't feel the organisation or the company you work for appreciates you, either make them appreciate you or move on. There is no reason why they shouldn't appreciate what you have to offer. But I've seen people drift, and when I went in to run BBC Children's, been pretty much the same for 11 years. There'd been virtually no change at the top. And effectively there was a taxi rank situation with, the taxis all queuing up, waiting to get these jobs, and everybody kind of aware that when one taxi went off, the next taxi would get the job, so to speak. And I went in and I thought, this is ridiculous. For a start, I have the oldest group of people I've ever met in television running the department that is actually for the youngest group of viewers. And secondly, there's a fantastic logjam of great talent in the middle of this department. So I started promoting on merit. It had nothing to do with your length of service. It had nothing to do with your length of age, with your age. And I knew that I had succeeded when somebody who thought that they should have got the job of editor of Blue Peter came in to see me and he said, well, Lorraine, at least when it was Buggin's term, we knew where we stood. And I think, that is very, very important. If you're running organisations as well, or if you're running businesses, the talent working for you is your most valuable asset. And making sure that you know where that talent is, that you are unleashing the potential of that talent, is tremendously important. When I went to work in the science department, another area where I had absolutely no expertise, I went into a department that was pretty much run by people with PhDs, making programmes for people with PhDs. And I was brought in as the populist, to try and help the head of department who wanted to change the culture there, and also to broaden the remit of science programmes so that they would start to appeal to a mass audience. And there was what happens in the BBC is if you don't think somebody's very good who works for you, you give them a great reference and pass them on to somebody else. And this had happened to me. So I had this guy, John, who'd worked in the department for ages and was thought of as being very unproductive. But I can tell you, he became my hardest working and most valued employee. And when I had my first conversation with him, it was obvious that nobody had really talked to him properly for I don't know how long. Nobody had set him objectives. And above all, nobody had praised him. He had fantastic editorial skills. He was a great filmmaker. And not only was he my most valued employee, he was my most loyal employee, because I'd sort of effectively removed him from the scrap heap and given him a sense of purpose again. And I think that is so important. All too often, people get a bad press, and it's often not really based on any foundation, but myth and rumour. The other thing I'll say, really, and there's predominantly women here, is it is a great time to be a woman, a working woman. It's much easier in lots of ways than it ever was. And what I'd say is, vive la différence. We are different. We're not the same as men, so we don't need to pretend to be. And when I first went into television, women used to pretend to be just like the men. They would either try and drink them under the table if that was what was required, or sublimate all their emotions, never talk about the fact that they were a mother or a wife or any of those things. God forbid ever say they needed time off to go to a sports day or something like that. And all that has changed because companies now realise just what women bring to the table. As the woman from HSBC said at the beginning, you have lots of the skills as a mother or as a wife or just as a woman that your male colleagues may not have. Multitasking just comes naturally to us. The fact that we are often more cooperative and collaborative. When Mark Thompson was director of television at the BBC, he set up a completely new commissioning system. And he said to me, Lorraine, I'm appointing women into all these posts because the men wouldn't cooperate. They would never make it work. And I think that's very important. And the other thing is, I think being a mother has taught me more about man management than any other thing I've ever done in my life. Because with my children, I want to see the positive in them. I want to encourage them. I want to nurture them. I want them to succeed. And I think that positive reinforcement, both as a mother and in the workplace, is really, really important. And there are a lot of people who work in television, and I have to say a lot of them are men, who felt that the worse you made your team feel, the harder they would work. The more critical you were of them, the more they'd be driven. I don't believe in any of that. It's not the way that anybody would motivate me. What I want is people to tell me what I'm doing well, and if they're prepared to praise me, I will allow them to criticise me. But if they're not prepared to recognise me for what I am doing, then what gives them the right to start criticising other things? I think I'm probably running out of time. I know we were all told at the beginning we could speak for 5 or 10 minutes, and we looked around and we said, 5 women, 5 or 10 minutes, you must be joking. I've got lots more that I'd like to say, but I'm sure you'll have questions in the Q&A, and I want you to hear from these other fantastic women here too. So.